The chamber gleamed with an intimidating opulence, a symphony of light refracting off crystalline walls. Ambassador Liana Holt stood at the center of it all, dwarfed by the grandeur of the Galactic Council's assembly hall. Delegates from dozens of species filled the semicircular tiers, their alien forms distinct, glimmering scales, shifting carapaces, and fluid-like bodies that shimmered as they moved. Their disdain for her presence was palpable. She cleared her throat, her voice steady despite the waves of condescension emanating from the audience. Esteemed members of the Galactic Council, I speak not for Earth alone, but for the survival of all civilized life in this galaxy. A grave threat looms, one that humanity has faced before and barely survived. I urge you to heed my warning about this dark. A ripple of laughter rolled through the chamber. High Chancellor Vrynn, a towering figure with skin like molten gold, leaned forward. The Zdark? The mythical destroyers of worlds? Spare us the dramatics, human. Do you truly believe your primitive species has insights we do not? Liana's jaw tightened, but she pressed on. Primitive? Perhaps by your standards. But let me remind you, our primitive species fought the Zdark when no one else would, and we lived to tell the tale. Decades ago, they came to Earth, annihilating our colonies and leaving entire fleets gutted. They don't negotiate, and they don't leave survivors. What you call myths we know as history. She paused, scanning the chamber. The disdain was still there, but a few delegates shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps they weren't all so sure. They are awakening, she continued, her voice rising. For decades, we've monitored the remnants of their presence. Recently, our deep space probes intercepted energy signatures consistent with Zdark hive movements in the Epsilon 32 sector. That's dangerously close to your fleets. A delegate from the Crystalline Shiren Collective spoke, his tone sharp and dismissive. Even if such creatures existed, do you expect us to believe they pose a threat to the Galactic Armada? Our fleets are equipped with the most advanced technology in existence. Your species, with its crude ships and brute force, cannot comprehend our capabilities. Liana's lips thinned, but she remained composed. I'm not questioning your technology. I'm questioning your hubris. The Zdark don't fight conventional wars. They disrupt, devour, and disappear. Our data suggests they've developed ways to disable entire fleets before a single shot is fired. If you think size and firepower alone will save you, you're making the same mistake humanity once did, and billions paid the price. The laughter returned, louder this time. Chancellor Vrynn raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. Enough. We've entertained this farce long enough. Earth's paranoia is not our concern. You claim your people defeated the Zdark? If they were so powerful, how is it that a species as insignificant as yours survived? Liana met his gaze unflinchingly. Because we fought differently. Not with strength, but with ingenuity. We used decoys, sacrificed entire fleets to create traps, and turned their strength against them. It cost us millions of lives and half our military infrastructure. And even then, we barely prevailed. She leaned forward, her voice like steel. Do you have the stomach for that kind of war, Chancellor? The silence that followed was heavy. Then, an Averin delegate, a serpentine species with iridescent scales, hissed derisively. Human bravado. Nothing more. Vrynn stood, his golden robes flowing as he gestured to the chamber. Let it be known that Earth's warning has been heard, and dismissed. We will not be frightened by ghost stories. If the Zdark exists, the Galactic Armada will crush them as we have crushed every threat before. The laughter erupted again, this time louder and more unified. Liana clenched her fists at her sides, refusing to let her anger show. I expected this, she said, her voice cutting through the noise. The chamber quieted as she continued. You've convinced yourselves of your invincibility, just as we once did. And when the Zdark come, they will not warn you. They will consume you, leaving no trace of your fleets, your cities, or your people. She straightened, her expression hard as stone. When the stars go silent, remember we tried to warn you. Without waiting for a response, she turned and walked toward the exit. The murmurs and sneers followed her, but she didn't look back. The Earth delegation trailed behind, their faces a mix of anger and resignation. As the massive chamber doors closed behind them, one of her aides spoke in a low voice. "They didn't listen." Liana stopped, her shoulders square. "They won't. Not until it's too late." In the distance, the council's laughter continued, echoing through the grand halls of their arrogance. The chamber of the Galactic Council was quieter now, but tension simmered beneath the surface. Delegates murmured in hushed tones, some questioning Earth's audacity while others debated the faint possibility that the human warning held merit. Council Commander Zarvek, towering and clad in ceremonial battle armor that shimmered with emitted energy, stood at the center of attention. "Earth's representative has no grasp of our capabilities," Zarvek declared with a tone of finality, his voice resonating across the hall. "Their survival against these so-called Stark was sheer luck, nothing more. They are primitives, grasping at tales to make themselves seem relevant." A delegate with translucent, gelatinous limbs raised a query. "But what if their warning is genuine? The Stark are a recurring myth across many civilizations. Could there be some truth?" Zarvek cut them off, his golden eyes narrowing. "Truth or not, it doesn't matter. Our Armada is the mightiest force this galaxy has ever seen. No predator, ancient or otherwise, can stand against us." Another delegate, an aged reptilian with dulled scales, spoke with hesitation. "The humans did seem sincere. Dismissing them outright might be unwise." Zarvek smirked. "Then let our actions speak louder than their words. I will lead the Armada myself. When we return, victorious and unscathed, their warnings will be nothing but a distant embarrassment." The debate was over. Zarvek had made up his mind. The Galactic Armada assembled over the course of days. Thousands of ships gathered in a dazzling array of advanced technology, forming an intricate lattice of power and unity. The fleet's flagship, the Aegis Eternum, loomed largest, a vessel so vast it housed its own ecosystems and training grounds. Squadrons of fighters darted like metallic insects around the capital ships, calibrating systems for their mission. Commander Zarvek stood on the bridge of the Aegis Eternum, surveying his fleet with pride. Around him, officers bustled with preparations, their movements precise and confident. The Council had trusted him with this mission, and he intended to make it a triumphant showcase of their superiority. "All ships prepare for hyperspace jump," Zarvek commanded, his voice cool and commanding. "Today, we remind the galaxy why the Council reigns supreme." The fleet leaped into hyperspace, streaking toward the Epsilon 32 sector where the Stark were rumored to stir. Hours stretched into days as they traveled deeper into the void, moving further from familiar star systems. At first, the journey was uneventful, even tranquil. Soldiers and officers within the fleet passed the time with games, drills, and idle conversations. Many spoke of the warning from Earth, mocking it as nothing more than human melodrama. "Can you believe they fought them with bait and traps?" one officer joked. "What are we supposed to fear? Ghost stories?" Yet as they neared their destination, the mood began to shift. The first sign was subtle. A scout ship failed to report back on schedule. Then another. Zarvek dismissed these incidents as technical errors or navigational mishaps. "This sector is uncharted," he reminded his officers. "Some losses are to be expected." Soon, however, the anomalies became harder to ignore. Ships reported brief but complete sensor failures, their systems flickering offline for seconds at a time. Pilots described faint energy readings that vanished when investigated, like whispers in the dark. One officer approached Zarvek with a report. "Commander, 3 more scouts have gone dark. No wreckage, no distress signals. It's as if they've disappeared." Zarvek frowned but maintained his composure. "There is no predator in this galaxy that can make an entire ship vanish without a trace," he said firmly. "Increase formation density. If something's out there, we'll flush it out." Despite his orders, the fleet's troubles worsened. Energy surges swept through several vessels, disabling critical systems momentarily before returning to normal. Crews began reporting strange shadows moving at the edges of their vision, though nothing appeared on sensors. Then, one damaged scout ship returned, drifting toward the fleet with its engines barely functioning. A recovery team boarded it, finding only 2 survivors among a crew of 30. Their condition was dire, eyes wide with terror, muttering incoherently about shifting shapes and living darkness. Zarvek reviewed the recovery logs with growing irritation. "This is psychological fallout, nothing more," he told his officers. "Fear can break the mind. Do not let it infect our ranks." But fear was already spreading. Ships began to drift closer together, crews reluctant to stray too far from the fleet's heart. In mess halls and corridors, whispers circulated about the Stark, their descriptions growing more vivid and horrifying with every retelling. Despite the escalating unease, Zarvek refused to alter course. He saw no evidence of a true threat, only the shadows of imagination. "These are the desperate games of cowards," he said, dismissing a senior officer's plea to retreat and regroup. "We press on. This is exactly what the humans wanted, to rattle us with superstition." The fleet advanced deeper into the void, the stars growing sparse and the silence more oppressive. As the Aegis Eternum led the Armada toward the suspected source of the anomalies, Zarvek stood resolute, his confidence unshaken. But in the quiet moments, even he couldn't ignore the weight of the unknown. The shadows that lingered in the corners of his vision seemed darker now, deeper, as if something watched from the edges of perception. He dismissed it as fatigue. He wasn't tired. Something was coming. The first warning came as a flicker on the fleet's long-range sensors, a sudden, massive energy signature that dwarfed anything the Galactic Armada had ever encountered. Alarms blared across the ships, and Commander Zarvek, standing tall on the bridge of the Aegis Eternum, barked commands to bring the fleet to full battle readiness. "Finally," he muttered, eyes alight with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. "The Stark reveal themselves. Let them learn the price of challenging the Galactic Council." The fleet adjusted its formation, warships sliding into tight defensive positions as fighters deployed in a glittering swarm. But before the Armada could act, everything changed. A surge of energy rippled through the void, invisible to the naked eye but catastrophic in its effect. Systems across the fleet failed in unison, engines sputtered, weapons dimmed, and shields collapsed. Entire ships were immobilized, their crews scrambling to understand what had happened. Zarvek's bridge descended into chaos as officers shouted over one another, struggling to re-establish control. "What is this? A coordinated EMP?" Zarvek demanded, gripping the edge of his command console. "Unknown, Commander," an officer stammered. It's rewriting our systems as if they never existed. Our ships aren't disabled, they're being erased." Before the implications of that could sink in, the Stark attacked. They didn't arrive in ships as the fleet had expected. Instead, shadowy shapes emerged from the darkness, moving like predators through water. They appeared organic yet mechanical, their surfaces shifting as if alive. Swarms of smaller entities, boarding drones, descended on the motionless fleet, penetrating hulls with uncanny precision. On board the Aegis Eternum, Zarvek watched in horror as a nearby frigate, the Solace Breaker, was overtaken. Through the viewscreen, he could see the invaders pour into the ship like a flood, their grotesque forms resembling a fusion of metal and flesh. Moments later, the frigate crumpled inward, its structure dissolving into a viscous biomatter that vanished into the dark swarm. "Commander, they're dismantling the ships," an officer shouted. "They're not just destroying us, they're consuming us." On board the attacked vessels, horrors unfolded. Soldiers prepared to repel boarders, but the Stark weren't conventional foes. Their drones deployed parasitic organisms that latched onto living beings, invading their bodies with sickening efficiency. Screams echoed through the calms as soldiers were overwhelmed, their forms twisting into something unrecognizable before attacking their comrades. Aboard the Perennial Star, a veteran officer led his crew in a desperate last stand. They sealed bulkheads, set traps, and fought valiantly with whatever weapons remained functional. But the Stark adapted with terrifying speed. The officer's final moments were broadcast fleet-wide, a shadowy form descending on him, its appendages slicing through his armor as he cried out. We're not fighting machines or beasts. There's something else. The transmission cut to static. Zarvek clenched his fists, his confidence eroding as he realized the scale of the devastation. Redirect all power to manual weapons systems, he commanded. If our technology fails, we fight them with what we have left. But the Armada's might was meaningless against the Stark. Ships that managed to fire their weapons found their blasts absorbed or redirected. The fleet's strongest warships were reduced to twisted wreckage, their crews either consumed or dragged into the Stark swarm. Zarvek's officers pleaded for retreat, but the commander refused. We do not run from shadows, he growled. Yet even he couldn't ignore the reports flooding in, entire squadrons wiped out, ships vanishing into the blackness without a trace. A desperate resistance formed among the remaining vessels. Crews abandoned their posts to seal themselves in makeshift bunkers, trying to outlast the onslaught. Some pilots launched suicidal charges into the Stark swarm, hoping to buy their comrades a few more seconds of life. Their bravery was meaningless against the relentless enemy. In the midst of the chaos, Zarvek opened a direct channel to the Council. His voice, once so assured, was now tight with urgency. This is Commander Zarvek of the Galactic Armada. To the Council, to all who can hear this, we were wrong. The Stark are not myths. They are real, and they are unstoppable. He paused, his breathing heavy. Earth tried to warn us. I see that now. They understood something we didn't. This is not war. It's annihilation. The bridge shook violently as the Stark began to dismantle the Aegis Eternum. Zarvek continued his transmission, his voice rising above the chaos. Humanity fought them once. Somehow they survived. Listen to their warnings. Prepare yourselves. If we fail. Static swallowed his words. The feed went dead. Moments later, the flagship imploded, its remains folding into the darkness like a leaf in the wind. Across the sector, the silence returned, as complete and oppressive as it had been before the battle. The Stark Hive Fleet vanished, leaving no trace of the Armada's once mighty presence. Where thousands of ships had stood, there was now only emptiness. No wreckage. No signals. Nothing but the stars, cold and indifferent, shining on a sector that had become a graveyard without bodies. The sterile hum of Earth's orbital monitoring station was broken by bursts of static-filled transmissions, fragments of Zarvek's final, desperate message. Technicians worked feverishly to recover the corrupted data, their faces pale with tension. On the primary display, distorted images flickered, shadowy forms, writhing masses, and glimpses of annihilation. In the command center below, military and scientific minds convened in an emergency meeting. The room was heavy with silence, broken only by the clipped tones of Commander Adler, a veteran strategist with scars that hinted at humanity's long history of hard-won battles. Let's get to the point, Adler growled. The Galactic Armada is gone. The Stark are real, and they've wiped out the most advanced fleet in the galaxy without leaving a trace. A surviving council delegate, pale and trembling, stood to speak. His normally imperious demeanor was gone, replaced with desperation. Earth warned us. We didn't listen, and now... He swallowed hard. Now we have no choice but to beg for your help. Humanity may be the only species capable of stopping them. The room fell into a tense hush as eyes turned to Ambassador Liana Holt. Her face was calm but resolute, a stark contrast to the turmoil surrounding her. We've been preparing for this moment for decades, she said simply. Holograms flickered to life above the table, displaying humanity's contingency plans, a web of strategies honed through bitter experience. After the first Stark attack, we knew they would return. We've spent the years since studying their patterns, their biology, and their weaknesses. We don't just have a plan, we have the plan. Adler took over, his gruff voice laced with grim determination. We lure them in. Decoy colonies outfitted with high-energy signatures will draw the Hive fleet to a specific sector. Once they're there, we deploy a combination of AI-driven weapons, engineered biological countermeasures, and a single failsafe. He gestured to a schematic of a device, a massive, self-sustaining bomb capable of destroying an entire planetary system. The Planet Killer. If all else fails, it will ensure the Stark don't leave that sector alive. The council delegate flinched at the brutal simplicity of the plan. That will take millions of lives, possibly entire ecosystems. Adler's eyes were hard as steel. Better a single system than the galaxy. As the strategy was outlined in detail, a heated debate broke out among Earth's leaders. General Naidu, a tactical genius known for his pragmatism, voiced a sentiment many shared. Why should we risk ourselves for the Council? Their arrogance nearly doomed the galaxy. Let them face the consequences of their actions. The room buzzed with murmurs of agreement until Liana stood, silencing them with her steady voice. I understand the anger. Believe me, I do. But this isn't about vengeance. The Stark won't stop with the Council's territories. They'll come for Earth, for every world, for every life in this galaxy. If we refuse to act, we condemn them all, including ourselves. She stepped forward, her tone softening. We've fought the Stark before. We know what they are capable of. And we know what it means to survive something like this. If we turn away now, what does that make us? Cowards? No. We are stronger than that. We must be. The room fell silent, her words hanging heavy in the air. One by one, heads nodded in agreement. Let's get to work, Adler said, breaking the moment. Across Earth and its colonies, humanity's military-industrial complex roared to life. Fleets were readied, bristling with weapons that seemed almost crude compared to the Galactic Armada's sleek designs, but each was born from centuries of innovation driven by survival. New AI systems were uploaded, designed to adapt to the Stark's unpredictable attacks. Biological weapons, tailored from the parasites the Stark had once unleashed on Earth, were readied for deployment. Meanwhile, engineers calibrated the Planet Killer, its core glowing with the potential to end a star system in a single burst. Within days, the fleet was assembled. Massive carriers and nimble frigates formed an unorthodox web of defense and offense, their crews a mix of seasoned veterans and fresh recruits. On the bridge of the flagship Resolute Dawn, Commander Adler addressed his soldiers. I won't lie to you, he said, his voice carrying through the calms. This is a fight unlike any we've faced. The Stark don't negotiate. They don't retreat. They consume. But make no mistake, this fleet represents humanity's best. We've survived them before. We'll do it again. Together. In the final hours before departure, a quiet resolve settled over the fleet. Crews exchanged goodbyes with loved ones, uncertain if they'd return. Engineers ran final checks on their weapons. Officers pored over strategies, adjusting for every conceivable variable. Liana Holt stood in the observation deck of the Resolute Dawn, watching Earth shrink behind them as the fleet entered hyperspace. Her heart was heavy, but her mind was clear. Humanity had faced extinction before. They had survived. Now they would prove they could do more, they could protect. As the stars streaked by, she whispered a silent promise. This time, we won't just fight for ourselves. We fight for everyone. The Stark Hive fleet surged into the star system, drawn by the unmistakable energy signatures of thriving human colonies. Their approach was swift and unrelenting, shadowy ships gliding through the void like predators closing in on unsuspecting prey. Yet, as they moved to envelop the apparent settlements, the trap was sprung. The decoy colonies powered down in unison, revealing themselves as empty husks rigged with advanced sensor arrays and hidden weaponry. Bursts of electromagnetic energy rippled through the fleet, disrupting the Stark's strange hybrid systems. AI-driven warships, designed to mimic organic unpredictability, emerged from the system's asteroid belt, firing concentrated volleys of plasma and kinetic projectiles. The Stark's initial advance faltered. Their adaptive nature, so effective against traditional tactics, now faced an enemy designed to exploit their strengths as weaknesses. Humanity's EMP bursts neutralized their swarming drones, and viral countermeasures infiltrated the biological elements of their ships, causing them to seize and twist grotesquely before disintegrating. On board the Resolute Dawn, Commander Adler issued orders with calculated precision. Keep them scattered. he barked. We hit them fast, we hit them hard, and we don't let them regroup. Throughout the battlefield, human fleets executed maneuvers that defied conventional warfare. Squadrons of frigates feigned retreats to lure Stark vessels into kill zones, where mines detonated in controlled bursts. Swarms of drones, piloted by adaptive AIs, penetrated the Stark's organic hulls, releasing engineered spores that paralyzed the ships from within. But the Stark were not so easily defeated. For every ship destroyed, another 3 surged forward, adapting to humanity's tactics with alarming speed. Human losses began to mount as the Stark's relentless assault pushed back against the carefully laid trap. Captain Elena Voss of the ironclad Resolve made the first of many sacrifices. Her ship, surrounded and unable to escape, rammed headlong into the heart of a Stark dreadnought. The resulting explosion shattered both vessels, creating a breach in the enemy's line that allowed other human ships to press the advantage. In the chaos, Commander Adler's voice cut through the fleet-wide comms. This is what we trained for. No hesitation, no fear. The galaxy is watching us. We don't stop until the Stark do. As the battle raged, humanity revealed its final gambit. A massive delivery ship, disguised as a derelict freighter, powered up its engines and barreled toward the Stark's central high vessel. Protected by the fleet's heaviest warships, it carried the planet-killer bomb, the fail-safe that would end the battle, one way or another. Inside the high vessel, the Stark began to sense the threat. They redirected their forces, but humanity's remaining fleets pressed harder, sacrificing themselves to ensure the delivery ship reached its target. Fighters collided with Stark ships, tearing through their defenses in suicidal runs. Crews vented their ship's cores in desperate last-ditch efforts to hold back the tide. Finally, the freighter breached the high vessel's organic hull, embedding itself deep within the enemy's core. On the resolute dawn, Adler gave the final command. Detonate! A moment of silence. Then, the star system ignited. The bomb's detonation triggered a chain reaction that consumed the high vessel and its surrounding fleet. The explosion bloomed like a supernova, a blinding light that tore through space, annihilating the Stark ships in its wake. The remaining fragments of the Hive fleet scattered, retreating into the dark reaches of the galaxy, their once unstoppable advance shattered. When the light faded, the battlefield was eerily quiet. Human ships drifted among the wreckage, battered but victorious. Cheers erupted across the surviving vessels, though they were tinged with grief for those who had given their lives to ensure the Stark's defeat. In the days that followed, the Galactic Council convened on Earth. Its members, humbled and visibly shaken, stood before humanity's leaders. "We owe you our survival," said a council elder, bowing low. "Our arrogance blinded us to the truth. You have proven not only your strength but your wisdom. We humbly ask to forge a new alliance, with humanity as an equal partner." Adler, standing beside Liana Holt, met the elder's gaze with a measured intensity. "Understand this, we are not your servants. We're not here to clean up your mistakes. If we agree to this alliance, it will be as partners, nothing less. And if the Stark return, you will listen to us. No delays. No doubts." The elder nodded solemnly. "You have our word." Later, as the council departed, Liana stood alone beneath the vast canopy of stars, reflecting on humanity's journey. From disregarded outcasts to protectors of the galaxy, they had proven their resilience, their ingenuity, and their capacity for sacrifice. Yet the weight of their new role loomed heavy. "The galaxy is watching us now," she murmured. "We've earned their respect, but with it comes responsibility." Her gaze lingered on a distant constellation, the faintest hint of unease in her expression. "The Stark are gone, for now. But they'll be back. And when they return, we'll be ready." The stars shone cold and distant above her, a silent reminder of the battles yet to come.